You are listening to The Vocal Technologist. Spoken Tech for your ears.
You know that persistent illusion we buy into during a glossy tech keynote?
Oh, yeah. The clean white background, the sleek device just sort of rotating in midair.
Exactly. You see that perfectly choreographed demo, and you think, wow, the future is incredibly polished.
Right. It all looks so effortless.
But I mean, if you peel back that seamless user interface,
Yeah.
you're basically staring at a chaotic construction site. Just sparks flying absolutely everywhere.
It's so easy to focus on those keynote presentations and totally ignore the plumbing underneath.
Yeah, and today we have the leaked blueprints of that construction site. So welcome to the deep dive. We are looking at a massive stack of recent tech industry leaks, enterprise telemetry data from Datadog, and literally orbital launch plans from Google and SpaceX.
Because we really want to understand that massive gap between technological ambition and the very messy reality of actually implementing it. Today is about looking at the raw data to separate the engineered hype from the actual infrastructure of our future.
Okay, let's unpack this, because I wanted to start at the end point. The actual devices that you, the listener, are going to be holding in your hands.
Right. The consumer hardware.
Yeah, because there is a massive shift happening right now at the operating system level. We've got news about Google Books.
Ah, right. The 2026 timeline.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Coming in 2026, and they are designed from the ground up with Gemini Intelligence. And the way you interact with it completely changes the paradigm.
How so?
Well, you just wiggle the cursor.
Just wiggle it.
Literally just wiggle the cursor, and that physical action activates a full-screen Gemini experience.
Yeah.
And it views whatever is on your screen across multiple apps simultaneously to make contextual suggestions.
What's fascinating here is that these devices run Android and have full access to the Play Store. So it is a complete integration of ecosystems.
Oh, wow. So not just a browser anymore.
Exactly. The reports show that most manufacturers who currently produce Chromebooks are transitioning to offer these Google Books. They're really trying to eliminate the barrier between the web interface and mobile applications.
Which totally aligns with that massive 16-minute video leak we saw, revealing Google's Aluminium OS.
Right, the desktop Android leak.
Yeah, I mean, on the surface, it looks like plain Android,
Right.
but it's loaded with heavy desktop experience features. Plus, we know Android itself is getting a massive AI overhaul in 2026.
Which Google is expected to announce at the I/O conference next week.
Right. But here's the detail that really stood out to me. They aren't holding these AI features back for the big Android 17 launch slated for June.
No, they're pushing it out via Play services and app updates.
Yeah. Why bypass the massive OS launch? I mean, usually that's the big moment, right?
Well, because relying on a monolithic OS update is an absolute distribution nightmare.
Because of the carriers?
Exactly. When Google releases a new version of Android, it historically takes years to reach the majority of users because it gets bottlenecked. You have cell carriers and hardware manufacturers who all have to approve the update.
Right, that makes sense.
So, by injecting Gemini and app automation directly through Play services, which Google controls completely, they can update millions of devices overnight.
Wow.
And, Apple is executing a highly similar, albeit more controlled strategy.
Oh, totally. iOS 27 is being unveiled on June 8 at WWDC, and they are introducing a completely customizable camera app where users choose exactly which features appear and where they sit on the screen.
Plus the system-wide design changes.
Right, new animations and a completely revamped Siri. Having AI baked into the OS level, it feels less like a helpful assistant and more like having a co-pilot who just keeps hovering their hands over the steering wheel.
That's a great way to put it.
Like, it's not an app you launch anymore, it's just always looking over your shoulder.
Which fundamentally changes the cognitive load on the user. Apple and Google are no longer treating AI as a discrete tool. It's not like a calculator that you intentionally open to solve a specific problem.
Right, it's just there.
Yes, they are weaving it into the underlying fabric of the operating system. It is becoming ambient.
Ambient AI. I like that.
But for that ambient experience to feel seamless and lightweight to you, the consumer, the corporations building these models, have to manage a staggering level of back-end chaos.
Because making Gemini or Siri ambient on your phone isn't free.
Not at all.
Every single time you wiggle that cursor, a server somewhere has to wake up and process that context. And when you look at the new Datadog telemetry report, you realize enterprise data centers are just buckling under that exact weight.
The Datadog data is incredibly revealing.
Yeah, they pulled real data from over 1,000 organizations. And it turns out Most companies are now multi-model by default.
Meaning they aren't just using one AI.
Exactly. They are juggling several different models from different providers simultaneously.
Which is incredibly dangerous from a maintenance perspective. The Datadog report highlights a compounding crisis they call LLM tech debt.
LLM tech debt.
Yes, because engineering teams are adopting the newest AI model releases significantly faster than they are retiring the old ones.
I mean, it sounds like trying to upgrade the foundation of a house while the family is still living inside, and then simultaneously deciding to add a second story.
That is exactly what it is. You are just layering complexity on top of an unstable base.
And that complexity is expensive, right?
Extremely. The report points out that prompt caching remains widely underutilized across the industry, which is leading to massive hidden token costs.
Let's clarify prompt caching for a second. Because without caching, every single time you ask an AI a question about a long document, you are paying the system to reread that entire document from scratch.
Right, it has absolutely no memory of the previous interaction.
So caching basically allows the system to store that context temporarily, which dramatically cuts down on the compute power needed for the next question.
Yet, despite those obvious cost savings, companies are moving way too fast to implement it properly.
Wow, just burning money.
Pretty much. And on top of that, the adoption of agent frameworks, where AI is given permission to execute multi-step tasks independently, has actually doubled.
Doubled.
Yes. This pressure to integrate AI rapidly is trickling down to the employees, and human behavior is completely warping the intended outcome.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. Because there's this story out of Amazon about a new internal product called Meshclaw.
Oh, the token maxing situation.
Yes. So Meshclaw is essentially a platform allowing Amazon employees to spin up their own AI agents. And these agents connect to workplace software, triage emails, interact on Slack, and even initiate code deployments.
Sounds productive on paper.
On paper, yeah.
Yeah.
But Amazon decided to track the token usage of these AI agents on internal leaderboards.
Which is always a risky move.
Exactly. So employees started doing something called token maxing. They're intentionally forcing their AI agents to do completely unnecessary tasks just to rank higher on the leaderboard.
It's human nature.
But, I mean, if we are tracking AI tokens like arcade tickets, aren't we just incentivizing junk work instead of actual productivity?
Worse than that, we are turning highly paid employees into middle managers for bots. You've basically hit on a basic law of organizational psychology, Goodhart's law. When a measure becomes a target, it ceases to be a good measure.
Right, because they game the system.
Exactly. By gamifying token usage without qualitative oversight, employees aren't optimizing for cleaner inboxes or efficient code deployment. They are optimizing for the high score.
And the security risks are just wild. You have employees commanding AI tools to act on their behalf, potentially executing code or sending corporate communications, purely to inflate a vanity metric.
It's highly irresponsible.
It feels like the industry is desperately trying to build guardrails for a vehicle that is already moving at top speed. But, look at the companies circling this space trying to solve the friction.
Like BrainTrust.
Yeah, BrainTrust is offering a free 1-hour course on building production-grade AI evils. And they're really focusing on, quote, data, not vibes, and shipping in 24 hours.
The focus on evaluations or evils is critical to understand here, because traditional software is deterministic.
Meaning predictable.
Right. If you click a save button, the menu closes and the file saves. It does the exact same thing every single time. But large language models are non-deterministic.
So you don't know what you'll get.
Exactly. If you ask an AI a question, it might give you a brilliant, nuanced answer on Tuesday, and then completely hallucinate a fake legal precedent on Wednesday.
You cannot run a standard unit test on that.
No, you can't. That is why companies like BrainTrust are vital. They provide the statistical proof that an AI is behaving reliably before you unleash it on your customers.
And then there is the sheer physical friction of the compute itself. Crusoe Cloud is putting serverless fine-tuning into private preview right now.
Which is a major relief for developers.
Yeah, because instead of developer having to manually rent, set up, and maintain a massive cluster of GPUs, which can take days of wrangling infrastructure, they can just submit their AI model and their training data.
And let the cloud do the work.
Exactly. The cloud does all the heavy lifting in the background, and the developer just gets their updated weights, the refined brain state of the AI returned to them. No surprise infrastructure taxes, no cluster provisioning.
Because ultimately, the burden of this chaos, the compounding tech debt, the unoptimized token usage, the security risks of token maxing, It all falls squarely on the human developers.
Always does.
They are the ones tasked with architecting these ambient systems and basically keeping them from collapsing.
So how are those developers actually holding up? Because there's a really insightful piece in our sources about why senior developers so often fail to communicate their expertise to leadership.
Yes, the communication gap.
It really boils down to a fundamental clash of perspectives, doesn't it?
Absolutely. A seasoned developer looks at a project and thinks purely in terms of complexity management.
Right, because every new feature, every new AI agent you bolt onto a system increases the complexity.
And in software, complexity guarantees future instability.
But the rest of the company, like the executives, the marketing team, they don't care about the underlying complexity. They only care about uncertainty reduction.
They want to know if the product will launch on time and if it will generate revenue.
That misalignment kills projects before they even launch.
It really does. The developer is frantically trying to explain that the foundation is cracking, and the executive leadership is only asking what color the roof is going to be.
It's so true.
The developer has to learn to translate their highly technical concerns about complexity into the business language of uncertainty.
So senior developers are essentially structural engineers complaining about load-bearing walls to a CEO who just wants to know if the open concept office looks pretty for investors.
That is a perfect analogy, and it ties directly into another source we reviewed regarding the database software Redis and the hidden cost of ambition.
Oh, the warning about side projects.
Right. The author points out a painful truth about software development. Projects developed purely as personal challenges or complex learning exercises are intellectually stimulating, but if they lack a definable, urgent business use case, they fail.
Because a maintainer inevitably loses interest and abandons the complex code.
Exactly. The ambition to solve difficult engineering puzzles is a great trait, but developers cannot lose sight of the core utility that makes a project valuable to begin with.
It is the difference between building something because it's exceptionally hard and building something because it's undeniably useful.
Exactly.
And, you know, if you want a masterclass in building something useful with a clear business case, look at Plaid.
Right, the newsletter campaign.
Yeah, they ran a highly targeted newsletter campaign with TLDR that added $382,000 in pipeline, generated 70 qualified leads, and delivered a 20.1 times return on investment.
Now that is a ruthless focus on uncertainty reduction.
Totally. No abstract complexity, no vanity metrics, just clear, undeniable business results.
When you contrast that massive ROI from a simple newsletter campaign against a developer spending 6 months over-engineering a database feature that no customer actually requested, the friction becomes really obvious.
Painfully obvious.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, the very nature of what a developer does is shifting to address this. We have a piece from Martin Fowler titled, "What is Code?"
Oh, I loved this piece.
He argues the future of coding is no longer just writing syntax. As LLMs take over the rote generation of code blocks, the human developer's job evolves.
They transition from being typists to being architects of clarity.
Precisely.
Like the AI can write the paragraphs, but the human developer has to write the outline, define the precise vocabulary, and ensure the overall system architecture actually solves the business problem.
They are basically building conceptual models that both humans and AI agents can navigate together.
Right.
But here's the thing. Even if we perfect that software architecture, even if we resolve the LLM tech debt and perfectly align our developers with our CEOs, we are still crashing into an immovable physical wall.
The power grid.
Exactly. Power and space on planet Earth.
This is the part of the deep dive that reads like a science fiction novel, but it is playing out in corporate boardrooms right now.
It really is.
Sriram Krishnan wrote this piece on AI economics, and he points out that every single major AI lab is locked into the exact same survival game.
The token economy.
Yeah, they are desperately trying to squeeze more AI tokens out of every single watt of electricity, price their models as highly as the market can bear, and acquire as much raw electrical power as physically possible.
Because data centers require a staggering amount of electricity.
Right.
Not just to run the massive arrays of processors, but to cool them. The heat generated by thousands of GPUs running simultaneously is immense.
It's massive.
We are reaching a point where terrestrial power grids are struggling to support the ambition of these AI models.
So what do you do when Earth's infrastructure can't handle your compute demands?
You look up.
Literally up. We are seeing credible reports that Google is currently in talks with SpaceX and potentially other launch providers for a massive rocket launch deal.
Right, Project Suncatcher.
Yes. Last year, Google quietly announced Project Suncatcher, which is a moonshot initiative aimed at launching fully functional data centers into orbit.
It sounds unbelievable, but the engineering logic is sound.
And SpaceX isn't just acting as a delivery service here. Orbital computing was a central part of SpaceX's pitch to investors ahead of its planned IPO.
If you can overcome the sheer logistics of getting the hardware up there, the physics of orbital compute are undeniably compelling.
How so? Like, why space?
Well, in orbit, you have access to virtually limitless, unfiltered solar energy. Furthermore, the ambient temperature of space provides an elegant solution to the massive cooling problem that limits terrestrial data centers.
Oh, because it's already freezing up there.
Exactly. The primary bottleneck for artificial intelligence is no longer software efficiency. It is physical infrastructure.
So what does this all mean? We are talking about putting your loud, overheating gaming PC out in the garage, except the garage is literal outer space.
That's pretty much it.
And to facilitate this, SpaceX is building hardware on a scale that defies comprehension. They just set a new record with Starship version 3.
The specs on that are incredible.
It stands 408 feet tall. It is the largest flying object ever constructed by humanity.
And it is packed with aggressive upgrades designed for this exact kind of heavy lifting.
Yeah.
Version 3 has higher thrust, significantly more efficient Raptor engines, and a new reusable lattice-like structure at the top of the booster. And that structure is specifically designed for hot staging.
And they're using hot staging, right?
Yeah.
Igniting the upper stage engines while it's still physically attached to the booster. That sounds incredibly violent.
It is violently efficient. By igniting the second stage before separation, they don't lose any momentum during the staging process,
Oh, I see.
which dramatically increases the payload capacity they can carry to orbit. The vehicle also features 3 modified grid fins to ensure the first stage can reliably return to Earth for rapid recovery.
Right, because reusability is key here.
Crucially, they are designing this vehicle to be capable of in-orbit refueling, which is an absolute prerequisite for keeping massive infrastructure permanently deployed in space.
And the upcoming flight, launching from a brand new pad at Starbase, is a critical test of these exact systems.
Yes, it is.
And they aren't stopping at one launch pad, by the way. SpaceX is openly targeting thousands of Starship launches per year. They are looking to build global spaceports to handle that cadence.
Laying the railroad tracks to low Earth orbit.
Exactly. But here is where we see a really fascinating split in the future economy. Because while Google and SpaceX are looking to orbit to escape Earth's limitations, legacy corporations are still fiercely bound by terrestrial gravity.
The contrast between the two realities is jarring, really. While we discuss the theoretical elegance of orbital data centers, the day-to-day reality of commerce remains fiercely physical.
I mean, look at Amazon. While their software engineers are busy maxing internal AI agents, the core of Amazon's retail business is doubling down on concrete logistics.
All right, the 30-minute delivery push.
Yeah, Amazon now is aggressively expanding 30-minute delivery across the U.S. right now. They're rolling it out widely in Atlanta, Dallas-Fort Worth, Philadelphia, and Seattle.
And executing a 30-minute delivery window is no small feat.
Oh, it requires a hyper-dense, incredibly complex network of physical warehouses, thousands of human drivers, and split-second local inventory management. It is as grounded and physical as you can possibly get.
And that intense physical reality stands in stark contrast to the purely speculative financial maneuvers happening elsewhere in the broader market.
Oh, you mean GameStop?
Consider the recent developments with GameStop and eBay. Yes, GameStop, a company that has essentially become a proxy for internet-driven financial speculation, made a massive $56 billion takeover bid for eBay.
Which eBay immediately and outright rejected?
Yes, they did.
They didn't just decline. They called the offer neither credible nor attractive.
Ouch.
Yeah. They cited severe uncertainty around how GameStop would even finance such a colossal transaction, the massive operational risks involved in merging the two wildly different companies, and the sheer crushing debt load the transaction would place on the combined entity.
It was a very firm no.
I mean, between launching servers into space and a failing retail chain trying to buy an e-commerce giant for $56 billion, the tech and finance industries seem to be running on pure corporate FOMO right now.
This raises an important question, and it's one I'd really encourage you listening to this right now to consider. What do you view as the actual foundation of the future economy?
That is a great question.
Because we are looking at a bizarre dichotomy. On one hand, you have the undeniable reality of Amazon moving physical boxes across Dallas in under 30 minutes.
Right. A logistical marvel built on concrete, fuel, and human labor.
Exactly. On the other hand, you have GameStop leveraging speculative market hike to attempt a debt-heavy $56 billion acquisition. One is grounded in physical execution, and the other is floating entirely in financial abstraction.
It really all comes back to that friction between the glossy blueprints and the messy reality. So let's quickly recap the journey we've been on today.
Let's do it.
We started with the devices in your hands, Google Books and Apple's iOS 27 weaving Gemini, and a revamped Siri directly into the operating system, transitioning AI from a discrete app into an ambient copilot.
Then we looked behind the curtain at the Datadog report to understand the compounding LLM tech debt.
And watched human nature warp incentives as Amazon employees token max their way up internal leaderboards.
We examined the changing role of the developer, shifting from merely managing code complexity to acting as architects who must actively reduce uncertainty for the business.
Echoing Martin Fowler's vision of code as a shared conceptual vocabulary between humans and machines.
And then we left the atmosphere entirely.
Right. Looking at Google and SpaceX's ambitions to bypass Earth's power grid limitations by launching data centers into orbit aboard a 408-foot-tall Starship.
Finally, we crashed back down to Earth to see Amazon perfecting 30-minute physical delivery, while eBay swatted away a wild $56 billion speculative bid from GameStop.
It is a vast, interconnected ecosystem of ambition and infrastructure. But before we go, I want to toss it back over to you for one final thought.
Well, we've talked extensively today about the systems we are building to serve us, but I want you to think about this. If our operating systems are now anticipating our needs before we even wiggle a cursor, and if our code is being independently written and deployed by multi-model agents, and if our physical servers are eventually quietly humming in orbit, entirely removed from human hands, at what point do we stop being the drivers of technology and become just another data point in its ecosystem?
Wow. When the bridge starts building itself, what happens to the people walking on it?
Exactly.
That is a perfect place to leave it. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive today. Keep questioning the information around you. Keep looking past the keynote presentations to see the actual blueprints, and we will catch you on the next one.
Spoken Tech for your ears.